Today, over 1 billion children in the world live in poverty. At Help Heal Humanity, our goal is to connect children in need with people like you who want to make a difference. Our student sponsorship program helps provide children with the necessities for a healthy and successful start to life. When you sponsor a student, you're not only giving them the gift of education, you're giving them the best chance for a brighter future. 100% of your donation supports the tuition fees, uniforms, textbook, and school supplies needed to thrive in a safe and healthy learning environment. Sponsor a student now and be the catalyst for their brighter future.
Friday, everyone. Your real worth isn't defined by your net worth. What makes you valuable is how you use what you have been given. All of us have gifts. Make sure you're making the most of yours. Have an amazing Friday.
It is now the bottom of the hour. I'm excited to welcome Nancy Matthews to our program today. Nancy is an author of a book. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it in the carousel for you guys. There it is, The One Philosophy. I want to talk to Nancy not only about the release of the book, but also what it's been like for her to share the message with all of you guys. Nancy, great to have you on with us.
Hello, hello, hello. So happy to be here.
Good morning. Bonjour. Comment ça va? Et toi? Ça va très bien. Ni hao. Hola. Buongiorno. Bienvenue. Wan Ying. Bienvenidos. Benvenuta. And welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. In each week, I truly get a phenomenal opportunity to take you on a journey to places you've never been before, to hear stories you've never heard before. Each week, I get one magnificent moment to take you on a mental, physical, and spiritual adventure into the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry. Because the same techniques and concepts that I use to appraise value in a gemstone can be used in other ways. When you look at what jewelry has meant to the whole history of the world, then you begin to understand what value is. So, what I do is I take those stories from all over the world and I use them as a template, as a bridge, as an inception point to get people to begin the journey of discovering the value of their own stories. This has been a great week, and I wanted to continue on with the thought process that we talked about last week in regards to Barbara. Go ahead and bring up my screen for me, please. Thank you. Barbara is wonderful. We talked about last week in regards to just manifestation. We try how to manifest your dreams, and I wanted to continue with that because we live in a world where a lot of people are depressed. A lot of people are not happy with their lives, and I understand why. I mean, I'm 62 years old. Wow. I'm 62 years old, and like a lot of people, we remember what we were told when we were growing up, that, you know, you got an education, boom, your life would be wonderful. If you did all these certain things, that your life would be fantastic. And now here in 2022, we so many of us are not happy with where we are in our lives. So last week was about how to manifest your dreams. And I wanted to continue on with that concept this week in regards to adventure. Adventure is in the mind of the beholder. What does that mean? So as always, let me start out with a story. When I was a kid, I grew up in the 60s when TV was just really starting to get popular. You know, people were able to buy televisions. And I, like a lot of kids, the television was kind of like our babysitter. My mother would say, just go sit there and watch TV. And that was fine because we were lost in television. And the shows that I would normally watch, the ones that I would choose, because my mother would have me watching soap operas and all the romantic movies, which is part of the reason why I'm such a hopeless romantic now, watching, you know, The Days of Our Lives, things like this. But the shows that I would watch would be the action adventure shows. I loved the undersea ventures of Jacques Cousteau. Remember that? Remember Mutual Omaha Wild Kingdom with Marlon Perkins and what was his friend's Jim? And Jim always kind of scared me. I wanted to be Marlon because Marlon went everywhere, and Jim not so much, because Marlon would always have Jim fight the alligators, and Marlon would just be describing, and I thought that would be me. And I'm like, I'm not gonna fight alligators and bears and things like this. But I love the show. Remember Johnny Quest? Johnny Quest was that little kid, and he had his sidekick Haji, you know, which was really like the first one of the few examples of diversity we'd see, and they would go everywhere. And whether it be Mutual Omaha or Jacques Cousteau, they would go. I learned how to swim literally on the 6th floor of my apartment in Harlem. because I was watching Jacques Cousteau every week, every Saturday. It would come on, and I learned how to swim on the middle of my hardwood floor. And when I was a kid, some bullies threw me in the deep part of the water, and I remember literally thinking as I was going down, not maybe the third time, but certainly the second time, saying, "Wait a minute, I did this at home. I could swim." And I just muscle memory, I just started swimming and I saved my own life. But as I got older, I started looking at all these places, and I'm living in, at that point in time, we was living in the Bronx. And I remember going to my mother after watching some show, and I looked at my mother and I said, "How come we don't go anywhere?" And my mother looked at me and she said, "What?" I said, "We never go anywhere. We're always here." And first of all, I never saw black people going anywhere on television. So that was really my overarching question. How come people that look like me don't go anywhere? And I remember my mother looking at me and said, "You don't know what you're talking about. I go places all the time." And I'm like, "No, you don't. I'm 9. So you know how you are when you're 9 years old, you know everything." I said, "No, you don't." And she says, "Yes, I do." And you know how your mother says something to you or your parents say something to you, and it's so beyond what you can conceive at that point. So at this point, I'm sitting there looking at my mother like, my mother's crazy now. How did you go somewhere and I saw you yesterday right here where I'm at? And she says, "I was in Egypt just the other day." Egypt? And I knew Egypt was in Africa. And I'm like, "You didn't go. How was you in Egypt?" And she said, "What was the book that I read the other day, last weekend? What was the book that I read?" And I thought my mother would always tell me the books that she was reading. So she told me that I remembered that she was reading Agatha Christie's Murder on the Nile. And I said, "Agatha Christie, Murder on the Nile." She was like, "Where's the Nile?" I said, "The Nile's in Egypt." I said, "Therefore," she said, "How long did it take me to read that book?" And my mother was a voracious reader. My mother read like people breathe. My mother could read 500-600-page novels or anything in a day. So when she said that she had gone to Egypt and I knew how she read books, it made me think, yeah. She said to me something that at that point in time I didn't realize. She says, "Barry, you can go anywhere you want to go. All you have to do is imagine it." So my mother physically never went, her physical body never went anywhere. I know she went to Vegas twice, Caesar's Palace. And then I remember she went to my brother's graduation because she didn't go to mine. So, but she went to my brother, which was in Kansas. But in my mother's mind, when my mother would talk, she would talk like she had been all over the world. And I didn't realize it then, but that was the foundation in which the whole rest of my life was built. Adventure is in the mind of the beholder. So when we talk about manifestation, what does manifestation mean? How does manifestation come about? How does that happen? And in this show, this is 3 years. Wow, amazing. Every week I say the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry. And we've talked about art. We talked about different things, art. We certainly talked about science. We talk about history on this show all the time. But the thing that I don't know if I emphasize is the magic. What do I mean when I talk about magic? And this is the part that took me so long to get in understanding gemology. Because to me, I'm a scientist, and if I can't see it, touch it, hear it, it doesn't exist. So for me, the magic part of gemology wasn't really real. It was hocus pocus. I remember having countless arguments with a friend of mine, an old girlfriend of mine, who was totally into metaphysics and spiritual guidance and horoscopes. And I was just like, girl, please. What are you going to do with that? But over the years, I began to understand how that relates. What is the power of that? So last week we talked about citrine, which is the gemstone for November. One of the gemstones. The other one is topaz. And I told you that citrine, beautiful gemstone, yellowish, different variety of colors going into reddish, golden, yellowish overtones. And I told you that citrine, when you read the different books on citrine, I was just looking for my book here, but citrine, I told you, is the gemstone that gives the wearer or the person born in that month enhanced creativity. Enhanced creativity. You have this gemstone. This gemstone is the gemstone of enhanced creativity. I told you that people for thousands of years that citrine would magnify your powers of will. It would give you more willpower. If you wanted to jump out of an airplane with a parachute, of course, if you wanted to jump out of an airplane, or you were afraid, or you had to do a presentation in front of a group of people, or your business, your office, your kids, that if you wanted to do something brave and you wanted something to help you with that, you would wear citrine, because citrine gives you that power of will. It would give you clarity of thought. Imagine you're writing a term paper. You're thinking about building a business, and citrine, according to not just one people, but millions of people for thousands of years, believe that citrine gives you clarity of thought. And I told you last week that citrine was used back in the 2nd and 3rd century. The 2nd and 3rd, the Romans and the Greeks used citrine, and this is what they believed, that it gave you clarity of thought. That citrine enhances not one, not two, but 3 separate chakras of the body. And those of you who Ashley and Nina and people who I know who are very into that, so they smile when they see that. That citrine activates the 6th chakra, which wasn't really that impressive to me until I realized that the 6th chakra was the sexual energy center. I'm like, really? Wow! I have citrine right on my logo. That's citrine right there. So you mean to tell me that by wearing citrine on my ring or my pendant that it gives me increased sexual energy, and I'm 62? Bonus. And I told you that citrine gives you connections to the higher self. That's what is believed. Citrine gives you connection to the higher power. So it creates a conduit for your thoughts to the spiritual world. That's all. That's what this gemstone does. This little gemstone that we're looking at, where the whole thing is not the color, just the tip, that gemstone gives you that kind of power. I got countless books that says that citrine, the gemstone for November, gives you those kind of powers. That those same books says that citrine, which is made out of silicon dioxide. And I told you that silicon and oxygen are the most abundant elements on Earth. Most abundant elements on Earth, meaning it's everywhere. There's no way in God's green earth that you're going to go through your life today and not come in contact with silicon dioxide. That's it. Quartz. Citrine is quartz. That's all it is. It's quartz. Quartz is the 3rd most abundant mineral on Earth. So we're not even talking about something that is rare, like, oh my God, it's not like some special stone that if you touch it, you become instantly enlightened and enhanced with these powers. It's everywhere. It has access. Everybody has access to quartz. So citrine. I told you that citrine is most of the citrine that you see, that you've seen in your life, because natural citrine is very rare, extremely rare. So the citrine that's in my ring, that's in my necklace, that on my pendant, the citrine that I've had, all that citrine has been, for the most part, 99% of it has been heat treated. That citrine is amethyst. Most of the citrine that you see is heat treated amethyst. So that means that someone took amethyst. This is amethyst. And again, they wouldn't take this quality of amethyst because amethyst has its own gifts, it has its own powers. But the amethyst that they use to create citrine is usually the lower level of citrine based on its color. So they take they take amethyst, or the lower level of amethyst, not this. I mean, this is exquisite quality amethyst. But they take lower level of amethyst and heat it from 878 to 1040 degrees to create citrine. They take this and heat it, and they become out this. So that amethyst, low level amethyst that they can't utilize because based on the color, because of course people want amethyst to be rich, beautiful purple color, and so the gemstones that are silicon dioxide, which makes it a quartz, that happens to have the iron that creates that color, that purple color, but not on a higher level, so it's low level amethyst. They heat it to 1,000 degrees to make citrine. And someone had to see that this rough citrine, once they heated it, had the possibility of becoming that. And the question you have to ask yourself is how? How did that basic gemstone become a gemstone that is known for clarity of thought, known for a gemstone of manifestation, meaning that if you have this gemstone in your possession, if you are born in November, and this citrine is a representation, a representative of you, your power, your gift, that gemstone will imbue you with that kind of powers. How? And this is the part, this is the magic. Because when you begin to understand that citrine by itself is just silicon dioxide, that's all it is. That citrine by itself is silicon dioxide that was amethyst, which is actually normally known as a higher level, more highly valued gemstone, amethyst, because people like purple over just the gold and yellow colors of citrine. And that gemstone, that citrine, has all these different powers imbued to it. How? It's because how did this gemstone? This is citrine. It doesn't look like anything. Look at it. I mean, it's nice. It's nice. But how did that become this? And once you get to this, you are imbued with all these powers. Even the name citrine, which is basically a variation of French citron, which means lemon. Lemon. And in America, if you have a lemon, that's normally known as something bad, something that is defective, a lemon. But yet, how did the word lemon for a car or something mean a bad thing, where citrine or citron means something beautiful. And the thing that I want you to start to understand, that the power of gemstones come from this gemstone, any power that this beautiful citrine has, it's based on a story. It's based on a story. Someone, probably a woman, just because of when you really start to understand the creativity of it, and you understand ancient cultures, and a lot of ancient cultures, women were the ones that were more in touch with their not just their feminine side, but just the spiritual. Even women today, but just touch with the spirituality of the universe, the connection of the universe. That's why so many gemstones, to me, women relate to gemstones on a different level than men. Not that men don't like it, but when you understand, when women wear gemstones and they buy it and wear it and they see it, it's a different level. But that's based on, so someone thousands of years ago, literally thousands of years ago, created a story about citrine. They said, this gemstone, when you have this gemstone in your possession, that this gemstone means clarity of thought. And someone took the notes out, okay? That this gemstone meant increased, enhanced, creative imagination. Okay, what else? This gemstone right here meant your power of will, your willpower will increase. Your sexual energy will increase if you wear that gemstone. Someone wrote that down, and they told someone else. And that person told someone else. And that person told someone else. And that person told someone else. Until here it is, thousands of years later, in 2022, someone is looking at this gemstone, and someone named Barry Mixon is telling the world that citrine has these types of qualities. And someone watching this show who was born in November didn't really think that much of citrine. Now they like, yeah, now I know that I'm all that because I was born in November. That is my gemstone. Someone is thinking about getting citrine for their birthday right now because they always like citrine, but because of the story that I'm telling you about citrine, now citrine has reached a whole higher level because of the story that I told. The story that I'm telling right now. And my point is, if you understand, if you can accept that citrine is a gemstone with all these characteristics, then my point today, and literally what this show is about, is why can't you use that same process to elevate you to wherever you need to go to? Why? Someone, let's not make it that difficult, because it's not rocket science. Someone thousands of years ago found and more than likely they found natural citrine, because there was no heating processes that could heat something to 1,000 degrees back 2,000, 3,000 years ago. There was no metal. They didn't understand how to heat something to that level. So someone found natural citrine, which again is silicon dioxide. So they found a rock. Look, Mom, a rock. Let me see that. Oh, someone envisioned, they felt, they saw the colors of that gemstone and imbued it with these powers. Someone wrote that down. Someone heard that story. And now, thousands of years later, Barry B. Mixon is sitting here telling people in 5 continents that this is what citrine does. And someone will leave this show today saying, hey, you know what citrine does? Did you know about citrine? Why can't that be the case for you? Why can't that be? Why can't you travel in your mind and become whatever you want to go? Go to wherever you wanted to go, just like my mom did. She went everywhere. Why? Because she heard a story. And as I tell you all the time, that a story is the most important thing that you could do in your life. Not just understanding story, but being able to tell a story and once you begin to tell a story, you begin to believe. You begin to believe. That's the magic. The magic of citrine is that someone, a whole bunch of someones for thousands of years believed that it had these type of characteristics. I have citrine in my ring right now, and I don't necessarily feel this energy pulsing through me. And it's not like in Star Wars where Obi-Wan said a Jedi can feel the force flowing through him. He had to believe. Luke Skywalker had to believe. Those of you who watch science fiction movies, Neo in the Matrix had to believe that he was the one. People who did wonderful, incredible things in history had to believe. Madame Marie Curie had to believe that what she was going to do in her life with chemistry and physics. Martin Luther King had to believe that the things, that the stories, that the concept that he learned from Mahatma Gandhi was something that he could do today. The Tuskegee Airmen, the black men who were told that they couldn't fly just basically because they were black, that they weren't intelligent enough to do it, and yet they had to believe that they could. They had to look at themselves in the mirror, just like all of us are looking at this beautiful example of citrine, and have to believe that those powers are imbued in what we're looking at. And the question that we're going to talk about is how? How do you get that to happen? And I can't wait to begin that journey with you when we get back on the other side.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been showing that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. We'll match you with the perfect buddy. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
We're offering you a free membership, so please sign up today. Share this with your friends and family, and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
You know what's so cool about doing this show is, and I always have to thank my wonderful executive producer, Barbara J. Beckley. We often talk about the show, but she never literally sees the finished concept. So when she does the commercials, she's just doing the commercials. And Barbara and I are so spiritually that the commercials normally match whatever I'm talking about on that day. So think about Chemo Buddies for Life is an organization talking about what? stories. They're talking about stories. They're talking about stories of what their journey has been through cancer, through surviving, through how to heal themselves. So they're literally believing in the stories that other people are telling them about their journey. And because of that belief, they can take it, it can enhance their journey. It can make them look at their lives in a different way, because as I tell you each and every week, that a story, as I said before, is the most important thing that you can do in your life. You have to see it. You have to understand not only just the story, but where you fit into the story. What kind of gemstone are you? What kind of powers are you imbued with? You're never going to look at Citrine the same way again, because you heard the story. And then you have to make the choice. And some of you will make the choice to believe that citrine is a stone of manifestation, to believe that citrine is a stone of increased creative manifestation, power of will. And because you believe that, because you heard that story, then that story has value. I'm going to say it in 1,000 different ways, because there's no one can tell me a story about something that means something in your life, and you can't. If you tell me the story of it, then what does it do? It increases the value of it. And as I say all the time, write it down. I'm probably going to put it on my tombstone that nothing has value without a story. Nothing. So when I ask you each week at the end of the show, and I'll ask you now, and I'll ask you again at the end of this show, what are you going to do to take time to discover the value of your own stories? I talk about As a Man Thinketh all the time. I talk about this, and I know maybe some of you might be sick of it, and I understand, because it just sounds like words. But when you begin to take it in, when you begin to understand, and you could do this with any book. The Bible. People quote the Bible all the time, and it's kind of like what my father said to me when I told him I didn't like jazz, and my father just looked at me and just said, "You're just not old enough yet." So, as I grow in this spiritual journey, I find myself reading the Bible more. But for me, I'm constantly brought back to the book that God gave me, As a Man Thinketh, this book. Think about what it says in the beginning. Let's just break it down. And I know it by heart, but I just want to break it down. Think about it. He says, "Here is a youth hard pressed by poverty and labor, confined long hours in an unhealthy workshop." Think about it. Unhealthy workshop. Though many of us are working in jobs that we hate. God, imagine being a Twitter employee right now, or Facebook, laying off thousands of people, unschooled and lacking all the arts of refinement. You want to go to school. You want to do something different. You hate your job. But he dreams of better things. In fact, let me just change the pronoun, because I always say she dreams of better things. She dreams of intelligence. You begin to start thinking about yourself. You start to think about the things that you can do, the talents that you have. She dreams of intelligence, of refinement, of seeing the world, seeing yourself in a different way. How is that any different than that rough piece of citrine that may not look like anything, but once someone cuts it, once someone fashions, puts facets on it, someone polishes it, refinement. She dreams of grace and beauty. Citrine is nothing until it's put into a setting, put into a amount that enhances its grace and beauty. What can you do to enhance your grace and beauty for, not for someone else, for you? For you. The gemstone, the citrine that you are. How can you enhance your grace and beauty? She conceives of, mentally builds up an ideal condition of life. I was there. This is not a screen. One of my viewers, thank you so much for your comments today. One of the viewers said, Barry, did you get that picture from the face internet? No, I was there. An ideal condition of life. The vision of a wider liberty and a larger scope takes possession of her. When you begin to see your story, when you begin to see how your story can lay out, not what you want to be, where you are right now. Adventure is in the mind of the beholder. This scene right here is just on a lake. It's on a lakefront, not in France. This is the lakefront, literally, 20 minutes away from me. That's right there in Indiana. 20-minute drive for me. That is the scene. And if I showed you that picture said, oh, this was in France, you'd be like, oh, wow, that's amazing. That's such a beautiful shot. That's down the street from me. Adventure is in the mind of the beholder. And once upon a time, I remember that experiencing something like that would have just been incredible. So a vision of a wider liberty and a larger scope takes possession of her. And I said he before, but let's go to she conceives of, mentally builds up ideal condition of life. Unrest urges her to action. And she utilizes all her spare time and means, small though they are. I was here. That same kid, that same man that was homeless. I'm sitting here with men from France, from Madagascar, Marco, Jerry, the French assassin. I mean, just Hugo, Renaud, Jean-Marc. I'm there playing this incredible game called Pétanque. And she utilizes all her spare time and means, small though they are. To the development of her latent powers and resources. How is it that I was in France and walking around France? Here was this was in the mountains. This was in the Pyrenees Mountains. And I'm walking around, and here is this, in the middle of this town called La Ronde, was this statue of Jesus on a cross. And here I was. She utilizes all her spare time and money, small though they are, to development of her latent powers and resources. So when you begin to understand a story, and and what it can be, then you have the power to fashion that story in whatever way you want to. I was in France because my mind, my spirit, my energy told me to go there. It pointed there. When you understand the power of stories, you have to understand the more you think about it, the more you understand yourself, you can play with it. You're the director of your own story. If you're in a bad relationship, let's remove all the sure you heard and you this and that and all these other kind of things. I'm not disregarding that. But once you begin to understand your story, you know that you're the director of your story. Take that person out your story. And I know it's not that easy, but it starts in the mind. If you want to do something better in your life, it starts in your mind telling you what story do you want to create. In the universe, God, the force, whatever you call it, will lead you there. Very soon, ideal condition of life, I'm sorry. A wider liberty and larger scope takes possession of her. Unrest urges her to action, and she utilizes all her spare time and means, small though they are, to the development of her latent powers and resources. I was there. This was in Bordeaux. How did I get there? I got there because years ago, decades ago, my mother told me that through reading, through my mind, that I can go anywhere I want to go. And there I was. And what I'm saying to all of you is you can do the same thing. Not because you're rich, not because you look a certain way, but because of your mind. You can go ahead and create what you want to be. Very soon, so altered has her mind become. Think about it. This is what's in the book. So, and I'm sure it's in the Bible. So very soon, so altered has her mind become that the workshop can no longer hold her. Think about it. It's not the workshop that changes. You change. That's that 1,000-degree temperature that a citrine, that amethyst has to go through in order to become citrine. That's the magic. Is understanding that gemstone that became, that is known as the gemstone of manifestation, had to go through some shit in order to get there. Because natural citrine is extremely rare. Probably has to be exposed to either heat from the earth or the sun. And we know how hot the sun is. So if you need to create citrine, if you need to create whatever you need to be in your life, you know that you're going to have to manifest that. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to employ heat, temperature, pressure in your life in order for that to happen. It has become so out of harmony with her mentality that it falls out of her life as a garment is cast aside. So the things that used to hold me back in my mind when I was living in those dumpsters in the city of Chicago, now I'm standing on the Pyrenees Mountains. The Pyrenees Mountains, the border between Spain and France. Here I am. How did I get there? Of course, I got there by plane. I'm thinking about my nephew would say, by plane. Yes, that's true. I work with kids. I got to think like that all the time. Yes, But what I'm saying and what my mother said to me when I was 9 years old, that if I imagined it, if I read about it, then the possibility happens. Everything, every invention, the laser, the car, the what I'm thinking about, oh my God, what is her name? The first black female millionaire who created, who saw the possibilities. Thank you for all you saying it and saying that. Well, she's, yes, I forgot her name. Thank you. But she saw what it could happen. Tesla saw it before it happened. Stephen Jobs saw an iPhone before it came. Imagination is the most powerful thing. And how do you get there? By virtue of a story. It falls out of her life as a garment is cast aside. It no longer exists. The thing that you want to be, that the thing that you used to be no longer exists. Why? Because you created a different story. And with the growth of opportunity, which fit the scope of her expanding powers, the vision, what you saw, the things that you saw as a child, the thing that I did not recognize when I was 9 years old, thinking that my mother was absolutely crazy for telling me that she went all around the world. And I know that she was still at the house yesterday because she made hamburgers. But yet she told me she went all around the world. The vision. She saw it. So the manifestation, the beauty of manifestation comes when you begin to understand what you can do. What you can, I'm looking for my cursor. I'm sorry. This is just what you, okay, got it. What you can do, how you can manifest it. The directions that you take in your life come from you understanding that story. And once you understand that story, that's when you can manifest the dreams. So the adventure, the things that I used to watch on television, Rat Patrol, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Jacques Cousteau, the Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau, Mutual Omaha Wild Kingdom, that all those things manifest in my life because I saw it and because of the story that was always in my head. Yes, Madam CJ Walker. Thank you. Thank you. I knew somebody would tell me. Thank you. Madam CJ Walker, who was a little black girl in the most, well, in extremely racist times in the United States, and yet she became a millionaire because she saw it. That's the magic. That's the magic that you can create in your mind. So altered has your mind become that the workshop can no longer hold you. And you pass it out, you've passed out of your life forever. So today, you become the citrine that you always wanted to be, or whatever gemstone it is for you. And as always, I hope you got something out of this show. I hope that you take a moment in your life that to begin to think about where you are. Where you are now, once upon a time, was a dream. Remember when all you wanted was a big wheel? Now you got a BMW? Okay, how did that happen? Mommy, all I want is a big wheel, and you got that big wheel, and you can't. And what most of us do is we're so busy chasing the next thing, we don't appreciate the here, right now. The adventure begins in your mind. So I hope you take time to not only just think about your own story, but look at where you're at. Think about your environment. Think about your story. and then look at where are you in your story, in the place in your story that you have always intended. And if you're not, how are you going to change the story to make that happen? So as always, my name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And I want you to look at your environment, look at the people in your life, look at the characters that are in your story, and begin to discover the value of where you are right now. I'll see you next week. Au revoir. Atatella. Voila.